Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Matt from 365 Books Pro, and today we have Joe Chapman, commercial insurance specialist with Dan and Hurst Hughes. We've known Joe now going on 2 years. Joe has been able to review current policies and provide insight in order to accurately recommend the best insurance policy that addresses and identifies risks for businesses. In many cases, Joe and his firm, Dan and Hurst Hughes, have been able to provide better coverage while lowering premiums for some of our clients. And without further ado, I would like to take this opportunity for Joe to introduce himself.
Well, thank you very much, Matt. Yeah, it's been great working with you. I am Joe Chapman with Dan and Hurst Hughes Insurance, and I do specialize in commercial insurance. And that encompasses almost every type of business are one sort or another a client of mine. I do have a sort of a subspecialty, and that is that I work with high premium and high risk workers' compensation accounts. And that sort of specialty really covers all industry types. So I'm not a very industry specific commercial insurance agent. And I've been working with commercial insurance for about 7 years. And I've been with Dan and Hurst Hughes for the last 3. That's my story.
Thank you very much for sharing that, Joe. If you don't mind, we're going to have a few questions for you so you can provide insight and information in regards to exactly what it is you do, how you do it, and why your company is really the best at the services that you're providing. So the first question I have for you, why do businesses need insurance?
Well, it's a good question. And I can kind of think of it from a couple of different perspectives. When you're starting out, when you're established, maturing or ending the life cycle of your business. Obviously, the most important reason to get insurance is to protect yourself from lawsuits or property damage to something that's valuable within your business. That's sort of the idea that everyone knows. Yeah, I want insurance to protect myself. But this is the way that we want to look at it. At Dan and Hurst Hughes and myself specifically, we want to look at it through a risk assessment point of view. The idea that you're assessing each and every risk to your business and potential risk to your business. And you're sort of slotting it into a category. Is it, are you looking at risk acceptance? Are you looking at risk avoidance? Are you looking at transference, which generally transference is when you're looking at insurance? Or are you looking at risk limitation? Those are sort of the 4 buckets that we're put them into. And part of that, the cycle of looking at your business and at how you're placing your insurance is also the idea of risk tolerance. How risk tolerant is the business? And then lastly is sort of, is the risk itself protection, which is insurance? Is it voluntary protection, or is this something contractual? You're entering an agreement with another party and they're requiring you to have insurance? Or is it regulatory? Is it something required by a state or government body that is needed for your insurance in that way? And those can sort of force you into transference. In most cases, larger business can look at self-insuring, but for most businesses, that's gonna include some type of insurance.
Okay, wow, that's a lot of great insight and information there. Thank you. Some things I did not know. Moving forward, what does a process of getting good in business insurance look like?
Well, again, I'm probably going to refer to it 50 times during our conversation, but I really want you to look at the idea of risk assessment. A lot of times, first, it happens often with first-time business owners, is they're going in and looking at what they need to get open. And there's a rush and there's a push and there's a pressure that I've experienced myself opening businesses, that you just want to get the doors open, you just want to get started, you want money coming in the door. Mm-hmm. But before that, you should have really taken a risk assessment and seen what it is that's out there, that's potential exposures for your business that you need to account for. And part of accounting for it can be acceptance. And sometimes initially when you're starting up, acceptance is something you're willing to take on more readily than as you're growing, as you have dollars coming in. We just need to place the insurance within that paradigm and say, okay, well, at this point, this is the type of insurance I want. After I get this many employees, I'm going to need this type of insurance. And the different types of insurance that we've sort of avoided, really for financial reasons initially, suddenly start coming into play. And again, those are clients you put it out to me, and I think that's great work on your part.
Well, thank you. Before we go into the next question, this is something that just comes to mind. Let's say we're a growing business. We run into this a lot, and I'm sure you do too. It's a growing business and we're looking to explore the market for a new policy. If we don't know how to assess our own risk, if we were to come to you, are you able to help us assess that risk and really dial in and hone on what it is that we are not looking at and should be looking at to ensure that we're getting coverage in the right areas?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's lots of different risk assessment tools available to us that we'll obviously share.
Okay,
and there's certainly some out there that you can go out and find on your own, but certainly there's things that I use, and it sort of depends on the feedback I get from the client.
Okay.
And which sort of risk assessment tool resonates the most with them.
Okay, great. I think you already kind of touched on this, but what types of insurance should businesses consider and why?
And again, it sort of starts off with, are you opening the business? Sort of what do you really have at risk and at play? How much of your personal wealth is tied up into the business, and what sort of risk tolerance do you have? Really starts the assessment process of what type of insurance you want to look at. And it depends if you're a single person startup versus you're starting with 20 employees.
Okay.
Are you starting with automobiles, your delivery company? And really, once you identify the industry and the size of the business that you're entering into, we can start to hone in on those and start to assess really what types of insurance. Generally speaking, you're going to start off with general liability policy. And then we're going to sort of explore the exposures that you have based on your industry.
All right, great. That really answers my next question. So moving forward, I think a lot of our viewers are going to be able to relate to this, or even people that are currently looking for coverage. What are some common mistakes business owners can avoid with insurance?
I think the most common mistake is really agent selection. A lot of times the way people view insurance is sort of a premium selection. In other words, they're just out looking for the most premium instead of looking at the agent who's going to represent them the best. And if the agent is representing the best, premium's going to follow. So are you really, instead of out shopping policies, you should be out shopping agents, taking a look at who's the best suited for your business, and how comfortable you are with that person.
So these type of this decision-making process when shopping the right agent really shouldn't be a flashbang, so to speak. It should be essentially your risk assessment roadmap and everything detailed and orientated to a T.
Well, certainly. And I think part of it is that's sort of the ideal setup, is you're really out. There are circumstances where, a client gets canceled by a certain carrier and their current agent doesn't know what to do, that you might need to make a hurried selection. In that case, sort of refer to other people in similar industries that can make quality recommendations.
Okay.
And I think the other way to do it is to really just go out and explore multiple agencies. And are they providing sort of the risk assessment approach to how to handle your business? Or are they taking 3 pieces of information from you and promising you a great quote? I think proof's in the pudding with the results and with how they're going to treat your business in the future.
Great. That's great. That's great to know. So that really helps us understand and identify how does a business determine what insurance agent is best, so to speak. Now that you explained that to us, what are some signs you've got a great professional insurance agent on your side?
I think a lot of it's going to be very, very similar to your industry. Do you feel trust? Is there consistent feedback from that person? Do you have a good rapport with them? I think rapport is important. Do you feel comfortable calling them up and talking to them about something that you just ran across, or you read an article about a particular type of insurance and you just want their feedback? Is that an easy process and you feel like you're getting a good answer? Another way is again, like before, are they asking you detailed questions? Mm-hmm. Not are you providing them? Are they asking you detailed questions? Do they want to see your current policies? Are those things they want to look at? Do they want, from my perspective, I want as much information as possible so I can bring the best possible offer to the table. I would encourage clients that are out there looking to look at agents who ask the most questions, not that ask the least questions.
Oh, wow. All right. Moving forward, what are the implications of not having proper insurance coverage? I know in the past, I've brought some things to the table to you, and you've shed some light and really been able to help some of our clients and even non-clients to identify not having the proper coverage. So could you explain a little bit of that to us?
Well, certainly the obvious implication, especially in commercial insurance, is just the exposure to financial loss. And again, if you choose not to insure a piece of equipment, and basically at that point, you're self-insuring that piece. My process is to really just make sure that you understand that this piece is no longer covered. And again, there's certain times where the cost of insurance doesn't warrant the coverage of that in an insurance context. And that self-insurance is totally fine, but that's a conversation that should be had. It shouldn't be what I expect to occur because the client said they don't want to insure it. I just want to make sure everyone's knowledgeable, everyone's aware of what the financial exposure is. And certainly one way to look at it, and this is something that I think is important for people to really look at when they have an insurance policy, any insurance policy, policy. Look less at what it is that it covers and really ask the question, what doesn't it cover? What am I exposed to that is not in this policy? And that's probably the best way to look at an insurance policy. And I think you're seeing right now with the pandemic, and specifically we're talking about business interruption coverage. Oftentimes that conversation never occurred. And in a lot of cases where it did occur, just the financial cost of insuring against this type of loss was way too expensive for anyone to even consider 2 years ago. They wouldn't have accepted anyway. They would have been it would have fallen into that acceptance category. But there's a lot of other instances of policies and coverages that are going to occur that you think you might be covered for that you're not. And a lot of times, if you've got a good legal mind, you might be able to read your policy and sort of infer out what is the case. But that's the reason professional agents are there. They should know what it is you cover for, what other exposures you have, and what other policies exist to cover those gaps in insurance coverage.
Great. And again, that's all great information. Thank you. And actually, you brought up a good point. I would like to kind of shoot this one off the hip. With COVID-19 still very much here and alive, especially in the DMV area, Maryland, DC, Virginia, is there anything business owners can do to be proactive in regards to what we're discussing for their business?
Yeah, again, most of it, unfortunately, is now going to fall into, even beforehand, my sense was the cost to legitimately cover the potential exposure for a virus exposure. That's excluded in a business interruption policy under almost all circumstances. That was excluded. It's really a twofold problem. The first fold is there is a virus exclusion since 2006 issued by most insurance carriers that excludes losses due to virus.
Okay.
The second exclusion, there's another exclusion. Even the companies that didn't have that exclusion in place also have a caveat for the business interruption insurance. Physical damage must occur to the building or the location in order for business interruption insurance to be effective. So really, there was a double leap in logic there, saying viruses didn't physically damage. It's not a fire, it's not a flood, it's not wind damage, it's not a pole or a tree falling through your roof. So there's no physical damage to the structure, but there is something out there. But at the end of the day, my feeling is, especially after this incident, it's going to be financially out of reach and financially unreasonable for most businesses to suddenly enact this coverage. And I've gotten asked multiple times. That's not to say you shouldn't pursue it, but for the most part, it's going to be outside the realms of affordability for most businesses.
Understood. Are there ever any instances where an insurance agent would say it's best maybe not to claim something on their insurance policy?
I would say that most insurance agents are going to tell you to at least claim it. Whether or not you want to file the claim with the insurance carrier. If you look at the instance of someone, nicking their finger in a restaurant, employee does that, and they know that they're going to grab a Band-Aid and cover it up, or they're going to go to the doctor and get a stitch and cover it up, and the business doesn't have any problem paying that out of pocket. The real issue and the real problem is going to come down the road, when the fact is part of the conditions of your policy are that you alert the insurance agent, the insurance carrier, as soon as possible to any potential claims. And the finger itself was stitched up, it got infected, caused more serious problems, and there has to be a surgery or a finger removal, which I have seen happen. And suddenly that minor loss that the business wanted to take on, the cost of the stitches, becomes a lot bigger risk. At the same time, if you alert them to the potential for the claim and the business pays it out of pocket, it creates a frequency issue for your workers' compensation insurance. But at the same time, it doesn't count against your losses for your losses funds, which is a good thing.
Understood. And I guess this is a pretty straightforward, and most business owners are going to know this, but I would like to ask: is commercial insurance required by law for any size of business, whether it's one employee, they just started this week, or they've been in business 20 years and they have 100 employees?
Generally speaking, no. Again, there's the statutory requirements that we talked about. If you're going to operate a commercial vehicle, you certainly want to have insurance coverage on that vehicle. And that's just in order to operate a vehicle on the road systems in the United States. There's other, filing requirements and particular types of insurance, depending on what you're hauling or what you're driving. So within that commercial automobile realm, there are some. As far as employees go, it just depends on when if you're just a single operator, no, you don't have to. It is required that you have workers' compensation. In Virginia, it's state by state, but almost every state follows a very similar pattern of once you get over 2 employees, you do need to have, by law, a workers' compensation policy in place. Even if you're not required to have workers' compensation policy in place, once you have an employee, you're liable. Either the business is liable for any injuries they incur on the job, or it can be transferred, and so the insurance carrier for your workers' compensation policy would be liable.
Great, thank you very much. As we're closing up on our questions, I'd like to provide this opportunity for you to explain or add anything else. Do you have any tools or resources you would like to add to our conversation today that maybe we didn't ask you or we haven't already discussed?
Well, again, from my perspective, the one thing we kind of jumped over, and I don't give you enough credit for it, is what can a good accounting agency do for a business in regards to their insurance. And I think 365 Books Pro is one of the things. You're asking more questions than simply providing a set service. You're asking them, sort of what their ratios are, and you're comparing across industries, at insurance rate and at other rates. Why? And you're asking questions like, why does this make sense to you?
Sure.
And those kind of questions, I think, are great, and I think they're important, and I think they lead to a good relationship, between myself and Danaher Skews and 365 Books Pro. But I think those are important questions.
Yes. You definitely hit the nail on the head there, Joe. Thank you for pointing that out and shedding some light on that topic. Furthermore, as we're closing here, how can we get in contact with you, Joe Chapman at Danaher Skews? Maybe your email or phone number, a website that we could reach out to you at.
Absolutely. You can go to danaher-skews.com, and you can find my email, which is jchapman@danaher-skews.com.
Okay.
And if you're interested, my phone number is 703-593-4136, and just call to have a conversation.
Thank you very much. We'll be sure to include that in the comments up on your screen or down on our screen, so people and businesses can get in touch with you.